What's your relationship with Hans nowadays? Are you guys, you said you're buddies, but are you really buddies?
Oh, no, I didn't say we were buddies.
You said it like a few minutes ago.
I said we would be buddies
of course,
around the topic of
as
meritocracy.
A joke, of course,
yeah.
A joke.
I think we would agree on that. Hans can speak for himself. The relationship with Hans is super complicated. I think it's much more, what is the right word when someone is holding a grudge? I think Hans is much more whatever it is, begrudging or and angry. And for those who, are sympathetic to what he's been through in the last few years, including me, you understand why. Like, I understand why. I also have gone over this many, many times. I talk about it completely openly in my book. I think people might be surprised on not just sort of the behind the scenes story of what really went down, not just on September 4th, the last time I was here, but everything that followed. And they might also be surprised in regards to the level of, I guess, I wouldn't say regret, but I have nothing but sympathy for all the parties that were involved. I think it was much bigger than all of us ever intended for it to be. And if I had it to do over, there might have been areas where I wish it had been handled differently, right? But as far as my relationship with Hans, I mean, Hans benefits from the narrative. Hans benefits from the narrative that he is still being persecuted. It is not true. If we're talking about present day, regardless of what happened and regardless of people's perspective, which I share a lot in my book, and regardless of what chess.com did, and whether people agree with the action we took or not, let alone what Magnus did, when things move forward and an agreement was reached for Hans to rejoin chess.com, not only has he been treated more than fairly along with everybody, he has had every opportunity to qualify. He just competed in a Magnus Carlsen-owned company. The only thing left that he can add to the claims, the conspiratorial, idea that there's some sort of blackballing of him going on exists right here in this city of St. Louis. But I think Hans knows very well that his relationship with the club has nothing to do with chess.com. It has to do with his own actions. And he has his theories on that and his perspective. I've heard of videos. I've heard of evidence of what damage he actually did versus what he presents and projects. I've heard of things about his relationship in terms of, how he speaks and how he treats organizers and how he deals with people that people don't like. And I think if Hans has issues with organizers, he should deal with those organizers directly in the relationship with them. Because when it comes to actual evidence and what's actually going on, Hans just won Freestyle Friday. Hans wins Title Tuesdays. Hans plays in every event possible on chess.com. Hans plays in events that we are partnered with. Hans plays with Magnus Carlsen.
I think at the moment there's definitely no reason to claim that chess.com is persecuting him.
Yeah.
But if we go back 3 years, you said that you might do things differently.
Yeah, I might.
Is that
maybe not? I don't know.
Is that because of how it played out, or because you think that it wasn't handled in the most ethical way?
No, I think I wish we had more time to communicate more effectively with Hans. I think communication is the key, and I think given how it went down in St. Louis and how I had just left, and the fact that we only had 2 days after the Sinkfield Cup before the Global Chess Championship was starting, we didn't have time to properly unpack or handle it in a way that I probably would have. But what people don't know is that we had many reasons to do what we did that had nothing to do with St. Louis. And while the volume was turned to 11 against our will when Magnus did something that, by the way, I advised him and Henrik not to do. If people think there's a conspiracy, in fact, the opposite is true. I told Magnus I thought it was a bad idea.
What chess.com did was exclude him from the global, was it called the Global Chess Championship
afterwards,
at the time? After Magnus.
But again, I share all of this in my book. And I believe that we had more than enough evidence, even if I don't like how we got there. We've talked about this. We've stood on the truth that every word in the Hans Niemann report is true. And frankly, we're talking about it now, which is unfortunate. It remains a big topic of conversation, but I don't like plead the fifth or say, oh, it's unfortunate, poor us. Like, I have to talk about it. I get it. It was a big deal. I don't have a choice. But also we spoke on all of this in the Hans Niemann report. I explained our perspective. I explained that we had evidence and that we had, when it comes to cheating, it's not as black and white as people would think. And when it comes to someone's past, it's not as clear cut as people would think. And Hans continues to perpetuate, at best a shortened version of the truth, really just lies in terms of his level of cheating. And if anybody knew what was really going on with the relationship with him and what was happening, like, you know, they might have acted the same way I did in my shoes. They might not have. But what I do know is there was no conspiracy. There was no abuse of power. There was nothing more than we were in a crazy vacuum, and the amount of things that were going on behind the scenes were explosive. And we did the best we could. And from the moment it's been, as you said, settled and agreed, any claim of persecution is only in Hans's best interest. To one, rally his base, right, who are commenting right now in the video, no matter what I say, and to perpetuate some sort of goal he has as a businessman to call us Chess Mafia while trying to launch a site that hopes to one day replicate the same business that chess.com has, and claim blackballing that is conspiratorial at best and just lacks no evidence, right? And so there's nothing I can really say to it besides I actually love seeing Hans on chess.com. My personal relationship with him would be fine if we had an opportunity to talk from my perspective. If it isn't, that might be more of a Hans problem than he wants to admit. And this has been wild, and I have a ton of compassion for him as a kid. And I also stand by that, like, it was the wildest thing I was ever a part of. I wish we had more time to think through things and to communicate more effectively at the time. That's
Who
what I wish.
accelerated this whole process of you guys basically just banning him, the report and whatnot? Who accelerated? Was it Hans just giving those explosive interviews immediately after?
I mean, we
Magnus didn't show
literally
up?
talk
Like, what
about this
was-
in the report. I mean, we said, like,
What was the
he had
catalyst?
a history of cheating. There were a lot of things
online.
coming
This is
Online.
only online.
online. Yeah. And our event was online,
Yeah.
right? That's the domain with which we operate and the risk with which we take all the time. You know, and some people think we do a great job. Some people don't think we do a good job. Everyone, I think, who knows and talks to us about it knows we're doing our best, whether you like the job or not.
Did your report, because I read it, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Did it also point to the possibility of over the board cheating, or was it just online cheating?
You should read the report again. I mean, honestly. It's a 72-page report. We literally said there is no determinative evidence to believe that he cheated over the board. We also said that Hans's trajectory that took him very quickly in a short time period is one of immense talent and has him, when compared statistically to others, operating or executing at a level that should make him like one of the best talents to ever play the game. That no one has ever gotten that good that fast. But we also determined very clearly that there was no step function in the data, which is indicative of cheating when it comes to how these sort of, you know, not just in terms of cluster statistics, but when you look at the data aggregated and how it works, there was no reason to believe that anything had happened. There was no evidence to believe that. And so I'm only saying that because you guys are grilling me about something that I'm totally honest about. It's literally written. Most people who are commenting angrily right now have probably never actually read it or seen what we actually shared. And I acknowledge that with more time, you look back at something and go, man, if I could have flown back to St. Louis, if I could have had a conversation, I might have actually handled it with a different type of discretion. It might have gone down differently. But also, like, I stand by the fact that at the time, as we serve the best players in the world, it did not serve the best players in the world with our events to not act, given that person's history and given what was happening. I stand by that.